Hello and good morning, Linked HR. I'm Dr. Chris Wildermuth, your community chair, and today I'm going to start a series of short conversations, one per week, about the leadership competencies that lead to an engaging workplace. I call those the meaningful leader competencies. The first one I'm going to address, the one that I'm going to address today, is building trust. Trust is often a misunderstood word, mostly because there are so many different types of trust, so many different reasons why we can trust someone, and we often get them muddled. So I wanted to unmuddle that, if that's a word. So the first component of trust is benevolence. Benevolence has to do with whether you believe the person has your best interests at heart, or whether the person is just thinking of himself or herself or, someone else's interests. Benevolence is a critical component of trust from the follower's perspective, because think about it. Would you follow someone that you think does not have your best interests at heart, is not thinking about you as a person at all? So leaders who are seen by their employees, by their followers, as trustworthy from a benevolence standpoint are leaders who clearly pay attention to the employees as people and have a personal stake, are particularly concerned about the employees or their followers. The second component of trust I'm going to bring up is authenticity. Authenticity has to do with whether the person whom you are deciding whether to trust is the real deal, or whether the person appears different in certain situations than others. For example, the leader who is really nice and really kind and really friendly in front of the employees, but then behind closed doors acts in a totally different way. Another component of authenticity is owning up to your mistakes and owning up to any weaknesses you have. So, for example, if you as a leader are not very good in, organization, it makes more sense for you to say, hey, I'm not very good at it. Who in the team can help me with it than to pretend to be a superhuman who is good in everything. So that's authenticity. Third component I'm going to bring up is reliability. Reliability has to do with whether you're going to do what you said you were going to do. Often, a person does not trust the other, not because the other person is not competent, and competence is another component I'll bring up last, but because the person says that he or she is going to do something and then doesn't do it. And if a manager is checking on someone's work a lot, there could be at least two reasons for it. One, the manager is a micromanager. And two, the follower is really not reliable. And if a person is not reliable, you're unlikely to trust that something is going to get done. The fourth component of trust that is particularly important from the standpoint of engagement is fairness. When employees perceive a lack of fairness in the workplace, they are unlikely to trust their leaders. There is a really interesting experiment done with capuchin monkeys in which they train the monkeys to perform a simple task, I believe is to give pebbles, and they reward the monkeys with some vegetable. I can't remember if it's a cucumber or a celery. So they give the celery and the monkey gives back the paddle. They give the celery, the monkey gives back the pebble. And then at some point in time, they start giving grapes to one of the monkeys and celery to the monkey in the next cage. And it's hilarious to see how the monkey who is still getting the celery reacts. A minute ago, the monkey was perfectly happy with the celery. Once the monkey realizes that the next door monkey is getting grapes, not a happy camper anymore. I'm going to put in the link so that you can watch it yourself. It's really funny. Why am I bringing up the monkeys? Because fairness is such an important component. Sometimes it's not so much, for example, let's talk about compensation or salary. it's not so much an issue of whether the person is making salary X or salary Y, but whether the person feels that that salary is fair internally and externally, vis-a-vis the person's efforts. So that's 4, right? So I mentioned benevolence, authenticity, reliability, and fairness. The 5th one is competence. So if somebody is not competent in a particular job, it's kind of silly to trust that that person is going to do that job well. One example I like to use is if for some very strange reason you decide to hire me tomorrow to be your chief, I don't know, financial officer, you'd better not trust me because I am totally incompetent in that particular topic. I know nothing about it and I would do a terrible job. And that has nothing to do with my benevolence towards you or normally my reliability if I say what I said I was going to do, or whether I'm authentic. I will totally own up to it. I'm terrible at it. I'm not competent in that particular task. So if you don't trust a follower, ask yourself, is it because your follower is really not ready for that task? And then what do you need to do about it? So those are 5 components of trust that you need to consider when you're discussing it in the workplace and with your team. Now, there's one thing that I did not address. There is a difference between trust and trustworthiness, or tendency to trust and trustworthiness. Tendency to trust is just that. Are you skeptical by nature? Are you one of those people who you want to see first how the person reacts and what the person does, and then you're going to trust? Or are you on the opposite spectrum, somebody who trusts first, and then if you have a reason not to trust, then you stop trusting? That's your tendency to trust, and that's something that can be measured by a good Big 5 personality assessment. However, your tendency to trust is not necessarily related to the other person's trustworthiness. So, for example, any of those components that we use, let's take competence. The fact that I have a tendency to trust someone says nothing about the person's competence. The person could be highly competent and I'm the one who is super skeptical. So every leader should know his or her tendency to trust, because if your tendency to trust is low, it's possible that you're not trusting someone whom you should be trusting. So here's my question to you this week. Have you experienced at work problems with any of the components that I mentioned? Lack of benevolence, lack of authenticity, lack of reliability, lack of fairness, or lack of competence? And when you experienced any of those problems with trustworthiness, what was the impact on you? I'm looking forward to your comments, and as always, happy learning, everyone.